What's up, everybody? I'm Guy, and I bought the new Mesa Boogie 2-channel 90s Dual Rectifier, so you don't have to. Now, here's the $3,500 question. Is it actually worth the money? And I guess I will say two things on that. First, it is absolutely an amazing amp. I do love it. And it absolutely isn't worth the money, and I think I might return it. So I spent the last few days watching all of the videos on the new Mesa Boogie Dual Rectifier, and I've been debating with myself, and I've been going back and forth on whether or not I should buy this amp. And hey, obviously I decided that I should because it's sitting right here. And yeah, let me start out by saying that I did buy this amp 100% with my own money. No one gave me this amp, no one loaned it to me, no one sponsored the video. This truly is a completely independent video. Now, why does that matter? Because a lot of the videos that I've seen on this amp have all been done by Mesa Boogie themselves, or they've been done by YouTube channels that got the amps for free, or on loan, or through some form of sponsorship, or the videos were from retailers selling the amp. Now, does that mean that all of those videos are inherently biased? No, not necessarily, but we should take those videos with a grain of salt, for one very important reason. When somebody says that this amp is great, which, don't get me wrong, it is really great. But when they say that and they don't spend their own money on it, what that statement really means is that this amp is great for an amp that I didn't have to pay for. And look, I agree, this amp is absolutely great, but it's also absolutely not worth the $3,500 asking price, at least in my opinion. Now here's the problem for me with this amp. And look, stick around for all the good stuff too, because there's plenty of good stuff to talk about this amp. Really, I do love it. But I want to get my complaints out of the way up front and right away. And yeah, the problem for me is that while the amp does sound awesome and it's super high quality without a doubt and all the rest of it, you can get the same or equally good tones and probably quality as well, and all the rest of it for a lot less money, in all honesty. And yeah, I guess that's why I'm having reservations with this amp, and that's why I'm debating on whether or not I should even keep it. I mean, I have a Marshall DSL 100HR that I paid under $800 for, brand new, not long ago, within the last couple of months, actually. And look, that amp sounds great, and it costs like a quarter of the price. And look, this isn't a debate on whether or not the Marshall DSL series amps sound as good as a dual rectifier. They're different amps and they sound different, but they both sound really, really good. And the price difference really just isn't justifiable in my opinion. But look, maybe you just absolutely hate the Marshall DSL, and I get it, a lot of people do. Okay, that's fine. But what about the EVH 5150, or the PV 6505, or the Victory Kraken, or the Orange Dark Terror? I mean, whatever. The list goes on and on and on, and there's a ton of great high-gain amps that sound amazing and cost so much less than this Mesa that when I look at the sound quality versus value equation, it makes me a little bit nauseous. Now, does it sound great? Yes, it does. But that doesn't make it worth the ridiculous price. Again, at least in my opinion. All right, so look, enough crying about the price. I'm sure you guys are already sick of hearing it, and you want to know more about the amp, and you probably want to hear the amp more. Okay, hopefully, though, I did get my point across, and my complaint, I hope I got it clear. That is that both the price is crazy, despite the amp being really, really good, and that I'm disappointed that really none of the other review videos that I've seen on this amp really discuss the fact that the price is crazy and that there's tons of other equally great and much more affordable options out there. Now, as far as this amp goes, what do I like about it? Because yeah, I said I do love it. And well, this is a Mesa Dual Rectifier and it does the Dual Rectifier thing. None of my other amps really do this exactly the same way. And you know, that's this. Yeah, that sounds really, really good. You know, I mean, I love my Marshall too, but it doesn't quite do that. So yeah, it does the rectifier thing. There's something else that I love about it too, and that's that my first really good amp, my first tube amp, it was a dual rectifier. And this is kind of a nostalgic walk down memory lane for me. I mean, honestly, I don't even really remember. I think it was a dual rectifier Tremoverb that I got. It was like 1998 or 1999. And I walked into a music store in town in my local area because, you know, there was no like internet shopping in 1998. And look, they had this amp and it was called a Mesa Boogie. And I had never heard of them before. And I had been playing guitar for a couple of years. And yes, I did suck. Not that I'm really much better today. But I liked punk rock music. I liked heavy metal. I liked death metal. And when I tried out the amp in the store, it had a sound like nothing that I had ever heard before. So here's what I did. I took a big chunk of my student loan money that I had at the time in the bank, and I very irresponsibly bought the amp and, of course, a matching 412 cabinet. Now, a couple of years later, I gave up on guitar and I sold the amp. And yeah, a few years back now, we're talking about a 20-year gap, I decided to pick up guitar again. I always thought about that amp and how awesome it was, and I had been debating with myself on getting one of the newer 3-channel multi-watt models of the Dual Rectifier for a couple of years now. Then this 90s reissue amp comes along, and I gotta say that really lit a fire under me, and here we are today with this amp sitting in my room. Now, I'm not going to go over all of the features of this amp. I'm not going to do like a proper amp review or a demo of this amp. Like I said, there's, I don't know, a whole bunch, tons, dozens of videos out there that already do that, and they're all great videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover some of the things that I think are highlights of the amp, and I'm also going to talk about some of the things that I don't necessarily care for or care about despite the price. Now, in terms of highlights, of course, the tone is great, but what was especially surprising to me was how much I liked the orange vintage channel. I didn't really think that that was going to be one that I really thought was all that great. I figured red high gain for me all the way. So yeah, I really did. I just expected that I was going to be using the red modern channel tones exclusively, but yeah, the orange channel is really, really good. Now, of course, the modern red channel is awesome, as we all know. And when I really want to push the limits of high gain tones, this is my go-to for sure. I love this. Absolutely love this channel. Still going. And that's with a noise gate in front, if you can believe that. So yeah, I will say that the amp is a little bit more mid-forward than I was expecting. That's one thing that I noticed when I started playing it. And often I will significantly cut the mids on the amp and even use a EQ in the effects loop on my board, and I'll cut a tiny little bit of 800 hertz out of it to get it sounding more like those metal tones that I have in my head. You know what I mean? Now, speaking of the tone stack, I will say that I was also surprised on how the tone controls worked on the amp. You can honestly get a lot out of them. And it's not like a lot of amps where you move the controls from 1 to 10 and you barely hear a difference. The controls on this amp are really responsive, and they do make a kind of dramatic shift in the tone. So yeah, A+ on the tone controls. What else? Well, I guess I would say that it goes without saying that the amp's quality, of course, it's excellent. And I know when I complain about the price. And when I compare it to other amps, and especially cheaper amps, the argument can and will, of course, be made in the comments that these other amps that I'm talking about don't have the same quality, and those amps are often made overseas with less expensive labor, cheaper materials, etc. And I get that. I absolutely do. And quality does matter. It just, in my opinion, doesn't matter nearly as much as tone. So as long as the amp's qualities meet an acceptable level of reliability, I don't care where it's made or what it's made out of. That's the bottom line. But yeah, this amp feels like, it's built like a tank, and the build looks and it does feel impeccable. Now, aside from the cost, there are many other things that I actually don't like about the amp, or I just don't really care about, that I'm, somewhat indifferent about. As far as dislikes and whatnot, I kind of hate this reflective mirrored control surface, or the panel on the front of the amp here. Yeah, it's A, hard to read. B, I think it just looks cheesy in my opinion, and I'm just not a fan. And, it's a minor aesthetic thing, but I just don't like it. What else? I guess I do like the blacked out top plate here. I think that's cool. I think it looks sharp, actually. But the mirrored reflective control panel, or, the lower half of the face of the amp, it just sucks, in my opinion. Now, the amp only comes, and this is a huge problem for me, in my opinion, this is terrible that Gibson/Mesa Boogie did this. The amp only comes with a single button foot switch for a $3,500 amp. I mean, I gotta say, it should damn well come with a switch that lets me control both channel switching and the effects loop engagement. Come on. It's like insanely cheap of Mesa to not include a 2-button foot switch. Seriously, WTF, Mesa. Do better. Now, these ones are features that have been a part of different Mesa dual rectifier amps for a long, long time. But honestly, I'm pretty indifferent about things like the bold and the spongy switch, or the mode on the front of the amp. They have the switch where the power switches. In the middle, power is off. Up is bold. Down is spongy. And then there's the rectifier select modes. And then there's the tube select modes as well. For me, I have to say that's bold versus spongy. All it sounds like is a drop in volume. I don't really get much use out of it going from bold to spongy other than I just hear less volume. Yeah, maybe it's that I'm just not a refined enough musician to really utilize it or something. That is probably true. I'm, an amateur. I'm barely above a beginner when it comes to playing guitar, despite the fact that I played for years and years as a kid and I've picked it up again for the last couple of years. But whatever the reason is, it's just a feature that's lost on me personally. I don't care for it. Similarly, on the back, there's a switch for silicone diode versus vacuum tube rectifier mode, or a rectifier switch. And again, I don't get or see a whole lot of difference out of that. So I just keep it on the diode mode and I basically forget about that switch because I don't hear a huge difference. But yeah, again, your mileage may vary on that as well. Could just be my unrefined ear or palate or ear palate, whatever. Third, there's the ability to switch between the EL34 and the 6L6 tubes. And I don't know that I would really ever get any use out of that feature. So, that's another thing that's built into this amp that's driving up the cost that doesn't actually add any value to me personally. I'm just always going to put 6L6 tubes in it and be done with it. So the switch and the functionality behind that switch is, again, of no benefit to me. The amp also has this channel cloning feature, I guess is what we would call it, where you can make both channels sound and function like the vintage orange, or both sound and function like the modern red. And there's nothing inherently wrong with this feature, but again, if I could save some money and not have the feature, I would probably happily take the savings cost. I don't know if I'll ever use that feature, and if it was gone, I really don't think I would even miss it. I'm just going to keep like the orange as vintage and the red as modern or high gain, and I'm probably never going to flip that switch in the back to make them clone one another. So that's useless for me as well. So yeah, I don't know. These are all little gripes or criticisms, and really the only big issue that I have is the amp's price. But all of those little things that I just don't really care about, we could get rid of all of that and lower the price, and I would prefer it. Now, maybe the cost of the components and the cost of labor and all the rest of that does actually justify the price. That's possible. I don't do the bookkeeping for Mesa. I don't know what it cost them to build this. And like the price that they're selling it for might be very justifiable based on what it cost them to build the amp. But as a consumer, from my perspective, when you just boil it down to tone, again, you can get excellent tones from other amps that cost so much less than this that I honestly can't justify how much they're charging. It doesn't do anything much more special than what other amps like it do. Now, if you want to buy one because, like me, you're kind of nostalgic for the amp and the brand, or if you just want an actual Mesa Boogie dual rectifier and you want the sounds a dual rectifier makes coming out of an amp like this, then by all means, go for it. I honestly don't think you're going to be disappointed, assuming you can afford it. But just keep in mind that a lot of what you're paying for is the brand name and the hype around the amp, and you're paying to be in a somewhat exclusive club as well. So what I'll probably do is I'll put it like this. It's a lot like owning a Rolex wristwatch. They're great watches. I actually have one myself. It's super high quality. There's amazing fit and finish, and all around, a Rolex is an absolutely awesome timepiece. But a watch like mine, the Rolex Submariner, is absolutely not worth $10,000. Tons and tons of excellent watches exist for way less than even $1,000. But if you want a really great watch and you want to be in the Rolex club, you got to pay the piper. And, if you're okay with that, again, I say go for it. Get the Mesa Boogie 90s Dual Rectifier, because I honestly don't think you're going to be disappointed at all.